Hey guys, and welcome to today's video. So today I am going to talk about something that really hit me hard when I was younger, and I think that it obviously hit hard for everyone who has to experience similar things. And I just want to start out with saying I'm sorry if you have experienced something like I did, because that is something that will break everyone down a bit. And it has been really difficult for me to talk about. It's just more recently that I've been able to open up about it, because it kind of ruined my childhood from when I was 11 years old, and I feel like it changed me as a person, like not so much anymore, but when I was younger, it really it changed me, and I think it would have done with everyone. So when I was 11, I got the message from my parents that my dad had gotten cancer. And when I was at that age, I obviously didn't know that much about cancer, but I knew a bit about it because my cousin had leukemia. So they told me and it was on TV, and everyone kind of knows what cancer is, but I didn't know a lot about it. So when they first told me he had cancer, he had a lymph node cancer on his neck and throat, and they tried to explain it to me what it was, and that he had to be in hospital, and that he had to have lots of treatments, and yeah. So I actually went to the hospital with him quite a few times, because I was like, no, I'm going with my dad. I'm not going to school. I'm going with him. So they let me come with him for a few times, and he went through a lot in the hospital. He was hospitalized first to have a surgery. So they cut up his neck and removed a lump, because he had a lump, and he went to the doctors, and they first told him that it was nothing, but he thought it was something. So later he was he refused to give up on that being something. So in the end, he found a doctor that actually checked it out and found out that it was cancer. So my dad caught it early, but the doctors didn't catch it until later. So that was really bad of them, but that's how it was. So he had lymph node cancer, and he had a surgery and removed it, and then he had to go in radiation therapy for, I can't remember how long it was since it was so long ago, but it was for almost a year, I feel that he was in and out of hospital a lot, and that it was still critical because they couldn't see if it had spread or if it would come back. They couldn't know that. They had to wait it out, and he was in radiation therapy and to try to get it away. And yeah, lots of full body scans, because it was really critical if it spread. It couldn't spread, so therefore they had to check him a lot of times, several times a month. He had to go into the hospital, which was 2 hours away from where we lived. So my dad was away a lot, and I was really, really scared. But I didn't realize how serious it was until all of my family members and all of my teachers at school were like, "Oh my gosh, how are you doing? How is your dad doing? Is everything alright?" And I was like, yeah, and they were like, yeah, you have to tell him we hope that he feels better soon. And they'd be like, oh my gosh, you must be so sad that your dad is ill, because that was before I understood it. I didn't realize how serious cancer was until I got a bit older and realized how much time my dad had to spend in the hospital. So when I realized that it was a danger of my dad dying, I really closed up. It broke me. I was so sad. I was so upset, but I didn't want to show it to my parents because I felt like they had enough to deal with my dad being sick. So I pretended that everything was alright, and that I was like, yeah, I hope you feel better soon, Dad. But I was really, really, really upset, and they probably noticed that because I changed. I was always introvert. I was always a quiet kid, but after that happened, I was 100 times more quiet. But luckily they got it away, and he had still to go in radiation therapy. He had to go to the hospital a lot, but his cancer lump was gone. So the only danger was if it came back, then it would be really dangerous. But just 2 years later, when my dad had started being more at home and he started to come a little bit more out of the risk zone of his cancer coming back, we sat at the dinner table once. I was 13, and they told me that my mom had gotten cancer. And that was it, because my dad was still not out of the danger zone. And then my mom had cancer as well, and when I was 13 I had started to understand it more. But I was still at the point where I didn't really tell my friends and stuff about it, because I didn't want to bother them. And it was I just kept it all to myself. I didn't talk to anyone when my dad had cancer. And when my mom got cancer, I remember that we were in a group of 4 people at school. I was in high school or middle school or whatever you call it. And I just went away from my friends, I stopped being with them at school, and they didn't understand it, and I didn't want to tell them why, because I didn't want to tell anyone that my mom had cancer, and that my dad had cancer, and that my life was falling apart because I was terrified of losing them. And I'm also an only child, so they were like my only family, because we live like 2-3 hours away from all of my other family, like uncles, cousins, and stuff like that. So my parents were like my best friends, and they meant everything to me. So when I thought that they both could die, that was like, I just closed up. I didn't talk to anyone. I just cried a lot, and I was really, really upset, and just it broke me. It was so horrible that both of my parents had cancer. Both of them were in risk of dying, or even if they didn't die, the cancer could still spread, and they would be in danger for like a lot of years. And I was scared that I would become an orphan. I was really thinking like, what do I do if my parents die? Who am I going to live with? I didn't want to live with my uncles. I didn't want to be adopted. I didn't want to live with my family. I wanted to live with my parents. And it just hit me like, shit, I have like, there's a lot of years until I'm 18, so what if I have to go live with someone else? What if I like become an orphan? And I always cry now when I talk about it, because it was so horrible, and I don't know why, but I just closed up and I didn't talk to anyone about it, and that made it like 1,000 times more difficult, because everyone like accused me of just being rude and just being like stupid because I don't want to talk to anyone, when the truth is I was falling apart and my heart was broken. So when my mom got cancer, that obviously resulted in even more hospital time, but it was good for them, because when they were two they could have like a taxi together, and I still had to be in school. But my dad was like going less at the hospital, so then it was twisted the other way around, and my dad was home with me when my mom was in the hospital, but my dad still had to go to the hospital a lot. So my parents were like running in and out of the hospital. I was in my teenage years, I was confused enough as it was, and that just made it like 100 times worse. So I would say that this experience ruined my childhood, because my mom also got radiation therapy. She had to remove the cancer, but it was still a big risk of it spreading for her as well. That was like a big risk with both of them, that it could have spread, and like, because when cancer spreads, the cells like sometimes develop later, so they have to like go in for, I think the first 3 or 5 years are like the danger zone. So I was just really scared, and it obviously did not help me that I didn't want to talk to anyone, because I just had it all for myself. And I remember when my mom had got cancer, it hit me even worse. And when she was away, when she was hospitalized and I was home with my dad, I would just stand in a corner and cry, and be in my room and cry. And my dad was like trying to talk to me like it's gonna be okay. And I didn't want to talk to my dad. I just shut everyone out, because like even my mom, because I was just so scared, and I don't know what I thought, but I just closed up. So I would say that it was very, very hard for me, and that it ruined my childhood, because I couldn't stop thinking of what happened if I became an orphan. But thankfully, thank God, both of my parents recovered from cancer. This is now 7-8 years ago. They are both into yearly controls, I think, but they are out of the biggest danger zone. Their cancer did not come back, their surgeries were successful, the radiation therapy was successful, and my parents did not die, so I did not become an orphan. But from I was 11 till I was about 14, I was really, really scared of becoming an orphan, and I didn't want to talk to anyone about it. I shut everyone out, so I would just have to advise everyone whose parents are having cancer, or like a family member who's sick, please talk to someone, because if you shut down and if you just close up, that is going to make it so much worse for you. Talk to your friends, talk to your family, talk to your parents about it, because they're adults and they would like to talk to you about it, rather than you just close up and talk to no one. Because I know how hard it is to just keep it to yourself, and I wish now that I had like talked to people, that I had used my friends, my family. But yeah, I'm really thankful that my parents got out of it safely, but it definitely caused a lot of stress on me as a child, knowing that my parents like might die and that I might become an orphan, because that has always been my biggest fear, because I love my parents and I want to live with them. But yeah, thankfully they were fine. So if you have like a similar story and want to share it, you could of course do it in the comments below, and I would really appreciate it. And I hope that if you're like in the same situation, that you will talk to someone and that you will be fine. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this enjoyed this video. Bye guys!